Hey guys,
it's Abby.
and Izzy.
Come along with us and listen to us yap. First episode of the podcast. Today we're going to be talking a lot about how we were raised, our childhood, how me and her got to know each other, and just the background of us.
Are you excited, Abby?
I'm very excited.
Okay, so I think we're gonna start talking about the strictness as in like growing up with boys and stuff, and how our parents worked with that. So, do you want to take it off?
Okay, so my parents, when I was really little, not really little, but like when I was like 10 years old and starting to get into liking boys, they made a rule for me, which was you cannot date until you're 16. So I couldn't have a boyfriend until I was 16, and I couldn't go on dates until I was 16. And even when I turned 16, I had to go on group dates, so I had to go with two or more people, like not including me and the guy. So when I was like 13, planned out who I would go with on the trip, or not on the trip, on the date, and who I would like bring with me and stuff like that. Well, my parents didn't stick to that. I dated a guy when I was 14. I dated a guy when I was 15. And they never let me hang out with him, so like makes sense. But I dated a guy when I was 16, and I dated a couple of guys when I was 16, and I hung out with them alone. Like it was never I had to hang out with other people. So, what about you?
So, my parents were the same way, but they were kind of like, once you hit 16, then we can talk about if your maturity level is high enough. And let's just say, I definitely went around that a lot. They didn't find out until about like a couple months ago, but yeah, so I dated a few people before I turned 16, but a lot of them I didn't end up dating. It was just kind of like we're together but not, and like I can't put a label on it because if anybody found out, they could tell my parents, you know. So they weren't like, and I'm sure like if I told them back then they wouldn't be mad, but I did not. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I remember the one guy I dated before I turned 16. One, he was a terrible guy, so it's like understandable that my parents didn't like him. But we hung out. He came to church with me a couple of times, and like that was where we saw each other, other than school.
So we're talking about like the start of our life and like, you know, to build a foundation on how to get to know us. So like for people who know us, like I mean, obviously you probably know some of this, but for people who don't, like you just get to see like the foundation of who we are now. And so we're going to talk about places we've lived and how often like we moved around and stuff.
Okay, so I was born in Texas, born in Temple, Texas, on stairs. FYI, guys, I was born outside on stairs. Fun fact. Um, and I lived here until I was about 2 or 3. And then we moved. My dad got a job as a professor or something. My dad used to work in the hospital, and he was like, I want better hours. So we moved to Missouri, and we lived there for about 6 months, or maybe a year at most. So we moved to 2 places in Missouri, so we lived there for about a year. And then we moved to Arkansas for about another year or so, till I was 5. We lived in Arkansas till I was 5, so we probably didn't leave Texas till I was like 3. And so my dad quit his job because they just were treating him terribly, and so then we moved back to Texas. Funny enough, my house I used to live in, like when I was born, is only like 15 minutes away from my house now. Yeah, and I've lived here ever since. I moved back in 2013, and I've been here ever since.
Cool. Okay. My dad was in the military while I was growing up, so he wasn't really around. So when I was born in Oregon, somewhere in Portland, I think. I don't really remember. I could be wrong. Don't quote me. But so was born in Oregon, and fun fact, guys, when I was 4 days old, I went to church for the first time. Don't remember honestly. But anyways, and so I was born in Oregon, and then we moved when I was 2 to Louisiana,
Mhm.
and because my dad is in the Army, but yeah, so we lived in Louisiana for a while. I think until I was like in second grade summer, and then we moved back to Oregon. But we moved like 4 different places in Oregon. So we lived in Portland, we lived in a small town called Jefferson, which Oregon listeners, you know where that is, but people who are in Texas, it's a very small town. Like when you guys think Killeen is small, no, like Texas or
Tiny.
Jefferson has like one street light, like it's
Mhm.
actually crazy. But so and then after I moved to Jefferson, I lived there for 8 years,
Mhm.
and then that's where I grew up, pretty much with awful people, literally awful people. But and then I moved to Texas when I was 14, and then so that's my freshman year. And then I've lived here since, and I'm gonna graduate.
Yeah, so the next topic, I guess, will be kind of who raised us. And so when we lived in Texas, I went to daycare here, and my parents were very much. My dad was the worship leader at the church I went to daycare for, so I kind of grew up into all that. And so the people I was around were like good people for the most part. Um, when we moved around, I remember moving to Missouri, and we had neighbors, and one of the neighbors was like a teen girl, and she babysat me all the time. And I remember like loving her. I remember we played a game or something, and I just loved her. And my brother was friends with her brothers, and it was like a good time. Um, and when we moved to Arkansas, um, both my dad's side of the family and my mom's parents live in Arkansas, and so the fact that we were living in Arkansas, we saw them a lot more frequent, I guess, um, and my dad's side is not the best people. I'm not gonna get too much into that because my dad's probably gonna listen to this, but he's not. They weren't very much a part of my life. They were kind of just there. We weren't really close with them. Um, but my like grandparents on my mom's side, I was always close with them, and my grandparents were definitely raised as in the time of where like medication and mental health and issues like that weren't really seen as real. And so when I did get older and went through some struggles, it was definitely, I was scared to tell my grandparents because I didn't, especially my grandma, she's very me. She'll tell you how it is. She'll ask you the crazy questions. Like that's how she is. And so I was definitely scared to kind of tell them because I was taking medication and I was dealing with these things, and I didn't know how they would take it or how my grandma would be like. If my grandma would be like, "Nah, that's fake," or whatever, fill in the blank. Um, and so, but like my mom and my dad went through his own struggles as a kid, and so he's experienced the world at a young age like I did, and my mom had her own things, and my brother was very much a big part of my life until like me and him, like we were siblings. We acted like siblings. We hated each other, but we loved each other. And he's older than me by 4 years. And we didn't like we would my parents would leave us home alone, and my brother would babysit me, and so he'd think he could tell me what to do. And if you know anything about me, I don't like being told what to do.
Literally, guys.
And so especially from my brother, like I was like, oh heck no. So we would get into screaming fights when we were home alone and act like nothing. My parents did not know about this until we told them this year. And I think it was when he got into high school and when I kind of got a little bit more, when I got into middle school, we really got closer because I was maturing and he was matured. And so I was like, my maturity level like peaked middle school by sixth grade. Like I was not a middle school, I did not act like a middle school kid. And so I think, we definitely got closer then, and then he went to college, and so, there's always that. He's an adult now. I
Mhm.
started high school. So it was definitely, we definitely got a lot closer, but, so I like, my parents were very much part of my life, you know, they made sure to be part of it, which, you know, I'm grateful for. So I didn't grow up in like a split household like some people, or, you know, a household where the mom and dad are together, but they shouldn't be together, or, you know, a brother that doesn't care for you, or a sibling that doesn't care for you and doesn't take care of you. And, you know, I didn't grow up like that. So I grew up in a loving household, which is why later on, like in the podcast, when we talk about some of our struggles we went through, which is why so many people did not understand why I went through what I went through, because my life was quote unquote perfect.
Mhm. Um, so since I like grew up in multiple different places, I don't really remember my childhood like that. Like it was always like I was on the road or I was moving or packing. Like I remember my first home, which I found out like when I was older that it was just a rental home. But we would like count down days like that we would like leave, and that was like my whole childhood. So I don't really remember, like I didn't grow up with anyone like that. I had a best friend when I was um like really young, and I don't remember her, but she randomly moved away, and she was like she was like my first friend that I remember. And she was like probably a kindergarten friend, to be honest. And then I think the most that I remember is my church. So my church had very like, so I mean, supportive people. There were some people who um definitely weren't the best, and I've had issues with some of like a couple of those families there. Not to
Mm-hmm.
bash anybody, but I won't name drop. And so I kind of grew up with just that church, and that church is very like, I was public schooled my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
I've never
Me
gone
too.
to anything different, but my church was very homeschooled, conservative, like very like it is the way it is. Like there's no like, we didn't talk about mental health like that. We didn't, like, it was very like suicide's a bad word, and like
Mm-hmm.
um
Mm-hmm.
like I couldn't really, and it was like I was quote unquote perfect. Like my family was perfect. If you looked at my like my close family, we didn't like, my parents didn't divorce, like all my aunts and uncles did, and it's like, so we're like the perfect ones out of our whole family. And so, which we when we do talk about mental health and stuff, that'll be something that plays a role. And so yeah, I grew up with people from church, and people from church, I had a few people who were really like, who really raised me and like how I think, the way I think. So a lot of church people raised me, and I had this one family which I love. They're the Brinkleys, which if you guys don't, I mean, a lot of people don't know, but they're just this little family, and they're the sweetest people ever. And I love them so much. I still talk to them, and they have a daughter who is now like 20 something. She's so sweet. She's so funny, and I remember her a lot during my childhood. She'd babysit me, and um, her and another girl would babysit me, and when I was a kid. And it was kind of cool to like talk to her when I was older. Basically, we're gonna talk about our church lives, and how we grew up in the church and all that. So, Abby, you wanna?
So yeah, so I grew up in the church. I was dedicated when I was a baby. Like,
Period.
yeah, I grew up. I grew up, and I grew up. If you know denominations and you know different churches or whatever, I've been um, AG, which is Assembly of God, my whole life. Um, that's just what my family. You know, you look at the core values and what they believe, and blah blah blah, and my family correlates with that more. I don't know. My parents just do it, and so I'm like, okay, follow the lead, I guess. Um, and so I grew up in a church, a little small, little baby church, um, down in Killeen. It was a sister church at one point of the church I go to now, which is funny. Um, and that's where I had daycare, and so my dad was the worship leader there. He played the piano, he sang, and so I grew up singing. I sang up on that stage a couple times. My brother did. My whole family were like musically gifted. Um, so when we moved around, I don't really remember those churches. I don't remember if we went to church. I mean, of course we did, but I don't remember like anything of that. But then we moved back here to Texas, and we went back to the church we went to when we first lived here when I was a kid. And it was the sister church of, this was when it was the sister church of the church I go to now. And it was a good church, but then we found the church I go to now. Shout out Crossroads.
Love Crossroads.
And so it stopped being the sister church, and we got a new pastor and all these different things. And so the times affected, this was before Crossroads had 2 services. I've been there since 2013. Yeah, I've been there for a hot minute. And so the time for the church we used to go to and the time for Crossroads affected each other. So my dad was like, I can't do worship here anymore. I want to go to church with my family. So we went solely to Crossroads. So I grew up there in kids' church, and I was in kids' church for all of my elementary school years, obviously. I went through about 3 kids pastors, not in a bad way. The first kids pastors went to a mission trip in Peru. The other kids pastors had, found somewhere else to work with a different church. And so then the pastors that they are working at a higher rank in our church now. So we have a new children's pastor as well. But the children's pastors who, fun fact, just so y'all know, Pastor Duncan was the voice of Barney.
Really?
Barney the dinosaur, yep. And he was the first person to pray over me for the issues I had. He was like the first person I told, honestly, when I was in like the 5th grade, and I got prayed over for it. And then they left, and I was sad. But I was going up to middle school, so it was okay. So then middle school, our services were weird. We had middle school and high school separated, which low-key I enjoyed. And I did worship for them, so I sang. And then I moved up. I didn't move up. So then the youth pastor that they had switched to a different church in Houston. They were called there, So we got our youth pastors now, Pastor Breck and Becca.
Ooh, love them so much.
We love them. And they've been here for most of my high school years. I think probably 8th grade to, I'm a senior now, so 8th grade to senior year. And they're amazing. They're very much a welcoming church. They're very much a welcoming pastors. Like
this is like the most welcoming. Like
they love everyone. You walk in and you just feel like they make sure who they have on the dream team and who works with the kids are loving and caring and like give the kids like hope and all that. Like they genuinely care. Like you can tell that they care. Not that other pastors before them didn't care. It's just you can tell that they care. And so the church I went to before, they cared, but I didn't go to the kids services. I didn't, it was a small church. We didn't have that. So going into youth and starting youth and doing worship, and now I'm doing photography and, whatever it may be, the churches were really good. I personally never really had church trauma, I wouldn't say. I went through phases. I recently got out of the said phase, like my freshman, sophomore year of high school, of hating God and going to church just to go because I had to, because my parents were making me, and not actually wanting to be there. But like, having to go anyways, just because of what I went through. I was like, what the heck? I was angry at God. And so that's like the church trauma I had was I grew up in church, so I thought that's what I'm supposed to do. And I grew up in a church that was God does miracles. God will give miracles to everyone. God will do this. God is this good. God is this. Like never talking about, you know, well, and I got affected really young, so I never had the pastors tell me like, not everything's perfect, fill in the blank, whatever. Yeah. And so when I went through my stuff, it was a what the heck? I was getting prayed over by pastors, by holy people. I was praying, my parents were praying, like, and nothing was changing. And I was like, what the heck? I was like, God gives miracles, but he's not giving me miracles. So growing up in a church, I grew up thinking that that's what's supposed to happen to me. And when it didn't happen to me, I distanced myself from church. I didn't want to go to church. I did so many things against church. I was a sinner. I was very much a sinner. I didn't ask for repentance. Like I didn't, none of that for solid 6th grade to freshman year. I did whatever I wanted and I didn't care. Obviously that's changed, and so my trauma is just, I grew up thinking that that's what's supposed, like I'm supposed to be happy. I'm supposed to get healed. I'm supposed to get this miraculous healing and all these different things. And so when I didn't get it, I was like, what the heck? This isn't what I've been told. The church lied to me. This is all a lie. Is God even real? Can he hear me? He's not helping me, so he's not real. So that's the majority of my whole situation.
So I'm basically just gonna talk about a church that I went to when I was in Oregon. And I grew up there, and yeah, so I technically went to two churches. So I went to a Baptist church and I went to a just like a, I don't know what it's called, Assembly of God church. And it was very like, we're perfect, like nothing, like you can get healed for everything, like I didn't really ever hear like, oh, I'm gonna struggle, like I didn't know how to deal with things that I was feeling or talking about or like going through. Okay, so I went to two different churches, and I wouldn't like attend Sunday service like at the Baptist church, but I did go to a youth group every Monday, sometimes Tuesday, because I went to the middle school one and the high school one, which even though I wasn't supposed to. I didn't care. And it was very like, I had a youth pastor, which I like, literally I loved him. He was great. He was 19, which I realize is very young. And he really put in the work. He really showed that he cared about us, and like and he was probably one of the best figures I had in my church experience. And when I was in middle school, I would say everyone was pretty good there, but they just didn't know, like they didn't know how to deal with somebody who was public schooled. I was very like outside, like
outcast.
Yeah, because everyone was pretty sheltered, so nobody like, I don't want to say nobody went through what I went through, but like they didn't go to public school. They didn't get pressured the way I was pressured. They didn't like
bullied, and
they weren't bullied the way I was bullied. And like, so it was very hard to want to come and talk to them because I felt like they didn't understand me. And so I just kind of like hid it from the church, and like when I would go to church, it would be like, I'm here because I have to be, like my parents want me to be. And like I did have a lot of friends, but it was like, if I had a choice, I would just sleep in, you know?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
But yeah, so, and middle school service, I guess, or like the little place that we would go when we were kids, they were very just like, we're going to teach you a book in the Bible. Like, we're not going to talk, we're not going to get to know you, we're not going to, like, we're just going to strictly learn about whatever. Like, we were kids, you know, which at that point, like, that's when I was most dealing, like, that's when, like, things really went down and, like, started to mentally just have an effect on me. And I didn't have, like, I feel like I couldn't go talk to my leader or whoever was, like, doing the lessons that I was learning. I couldn't talk to them. And one of them was my uncle. Like, and I'm not going to talk to my uncle. Like, that's, yeah, we didn't ever grow that kind of bond. But, and I knew that whole church loved me. I did. But I got close with this one family, and I became really close to them. There was a girl, and I became, like, sisters with. And I'm not going to go too much into that, but they did, she did hurt me a lot, and made me, when I moved, made me just not want to connect with anybody. Like, I didn't want to talk to anybody. I was very, like, oh, like, they're so clique-ish. Like, they didn't want to be my friend. They didn't want to get to know me. They were very, like, you have to be, like, I thought, like, you would have to be perfect. Like, they're not going to understand me. Like, which is so far beyond what I thought, and or what is, like. And so yeah, and then, like, I came September of 2022, yeah, and September 2022, and I sat in the back with my brother. Like, we didn't try to talk to anybody. We talked, the first couple times I didn't talk to anybody. Like, I was very just like, come in, not talk to anybody. Like, and then a leader, his name is Daniel. He's pretty great. He was, like, the first person to talk to me that I can remember. And or he introduced me to Abby, about a year ago, but we didn't really talk. I thought she didn't like me because she was very, like, rushed. I think, she was
not a people person.
Yeah, she was definitely not a people person, and, like, I just felt that vibe. I was like, yeah, she does not want to talk to me. She's being forced to talk to me. She does not want to talk to me. And which is kind of funny now. It's kind of like, you know. So yeah, Daniel would come up to me and my brother and just get to know us, and, like, he wanted to know about what we were doing in school. Like, he wanted to know about our life. He wanted to know, like, personal details, and I was like, it was almost like a culture shock. It was like, whoa, like, you really want to get to know me.
Yeah.
And that's when I started to, like, open my heart a little bit to people. And I had my first friend I met on Easter. Her name is Nevaeh. She's really great, and we've been friends for a year now. And yeah, so she was like, and she was very lovey. She was very, like, just like, let's go meet everybody, and, like, let's get to know everybody. And that's when I met the Lewises and Selah, and they were, like, literally the most, like, they were so loving to me. And I was like, this is so crazy. Like, they actually want to know me. I was like, this is insane. I was like, no way. Like, this has to be fake. But yeah. And I would go every Sunday, and I got into little Bible groups or whatever we had. And then that's when I started to get to know everybody else more. That's when I met this little gremlin over here. No, I'm just kidding. That's when I met Abby. And yeah, and then I met so many amazing people at this church. And that's when I really started to get to know Breck and Becca. And they are just, they're amazing. Beyond loving. And, like, I don't know, it just, like, blew all of my expectations.
Yeah.
Because the way my old church was.
And it's definitely, like how your old church, they were all sheltered.
Yes.
Like, they didn't talk about things, but, like, Breck and Becca, they will
wholeheartedly
talk about the dirty.
Anything.
They will talk about things that most churches don't talk about. Like, they will talk about the mental health. They will talk about the addictions. They will talk about fill in the blank. Like, what you think most churches wouldn't talk about, they would talk about it.
Right. And I never had that kind of safe space. And I really, like, going to church camp is really what changed everything. With really, like, fully trusting this church. because I was still like hesitant. I was like, you know, I wouldn't tell them certain things, or like I felt like I couldn't be real, or like,
Mhm.
you know, I was going through a lot this past year, and like I felt like I had to come, not perform every Sunday, but I had to be like, smiles, everything's good. You know, they would preach, um, Breck would preach like, you know, come in however you need to, like don't lie, like if you're not okay, tell us. And I was like, yeah, my old church would say some stuff like that, and they would never like prove
They
that with
didn't
their
mean it, yeah.
actions. Yeah, they'd be like, come as you are, but like they were never like actually come as you are.
Mhm.
They were like, put on a face, you're here to look good for our like camera crew or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's 110% not what CRC is.
No.
It's very like, if you're having a rough day, go talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And my old church was like, if you're having a rough day, yeah, you gotta put that aside.
Yeah. Deal with that at home.
Yeah, literally. They were like, you know, like talk about it away from church people, which that's all I had.
Mhm. Yeah. So definitely like this church, I have always, I guess, struggled to make friends just because I'm not a people person. No, I'm not. And because when I was going through my issues, I became very rude and mean and very angry. And so when I would talk to people, it would, yeah, I was a bully. I'll admit it. I was a bully. I was bad. And we'll get to that later. But it was definitely something that there's people here that like, oh, they want to talk to me, or oh, I don't have to be mean, or whatever it may be, or oh, they are a girl's girl. Or they are, speaking of Carly, love you, girl.
Love Carly.
Like, oh, they are a girl's girl. And like all these different things that like my insecurities or my past or whatever it may be filled my brain with, people. And I was never I would tell my mom, I'm like, I'm bored, I have no friends. She's like, well, go make friends, go make church friends. I'm like, Mom, I don't like none of them. Just like whatever it may be, like, well, no, they look at me weird, or they do this or they do that. And some of the people it's probably true, but like for majority of it is, I say this, but half the friends I've had come to me and say, girl, I thought you were mean when I saw you.
Yeah.
You have a RBF real bad. And so it's just like you never know until you talk to someone. Like, I'm the type of person, I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna look like I don't want to be there. You're gonna come and talk to me and I'm gonna get the biggest smile on my face. Like, that's me. And so it was definitely different to meet friends and to actually meet like true friends, like not fake people. Um, so that was definitely something. But yeah, my sophomore year, I met this little thing back here.
Okay.
And it was funny because yeah, I was the one that's been there. I've been at the church. I've been at there for the start. Everybody knew me. So it was, Abby, you're a familiar face. Let's get you to introduce. So, and I went to the same school Izzy went to. So they were always, they pull me and they're like, hey, this is Isabel. Da 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 da. I'm like, oh, I'm Abby, trying to start conversation, but I'm tired. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. I want to go to bed. I don't want to be here this early. And I was still in my phase of I don't really want to be at church, whatever it may be. And I saw her this day, didn't see her again.
Yeah, literally, we didn't see each other for a whole year.
Yeah, didn't see her again until, I guess we'll get into how we met, kind of.
Yeah, so, well, that'll be a different.
Yeah, but just summary is we met then January 1st of this year, which is so funny. January 1st of this year, we hung out for the first time together and with a group of people. And we had a sleepover that day. I trauma dumped. She trauma dumped to her best of ability. She didn't like fully trauma dump like she has now.
I was still like, guys.
Yeah, but I trauma dumped because at this point I was healed of my stuff as much as I could be at the time. And so I was comfortable with telling people about it.
And I wasn't even like 3 days clean. So it's like.
And yeah, and all those things. And, I'd hit my 6 month mark. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so good. I'm about to hit my year. Oh no, I was like really close. I'm about to hit my year in a month. Like, it was like, I can so talk about this. And so I just trauma dumped. I didn't care. And we got close since that day. I think because I was very open. And she was like, oh dang, this girl looks perfect. And dang, she went through something. She's literally me in a different font.
Yeah, no.
Like, I remember her telling me we're sitting there and she's like, when we like got closer, she was like, no, yeah, that day I was sitting there and I was like, yo, I thought this girl's life was perfect. She's sitting here and telling me about her life and she's literally me.
Yeah, I was like, we've been through so much similar stuff, and it's like, she didn't have like the same issues that I had, but it's also like, we still like had the same kind of mentality.
Yeah, we still coped the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, we still coped the same.
We did.
And so, I became kind of
You became a light.
Yeah, I became kind of a light, a mentor of she comes to me and I'm like, hey, blah, 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 feeling like, hey,
yeah,
you're doing this. I've been there. I've done it. This is something I've done to help me.
You were so open about it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was like, whoa.
I'm open about it now. Like, it's one of those things where it's like,
you've come so far not to be loud about it.
Which, like, a year ago, 2 years ago, I, like, hated giving people advice because I'm giving you advice, but I'm not listening to the advice I'm giving. I'd be like, oh, yeah, no, like, it gets better, everything gets better, it's not worth it, da-da-da. But I'm sitting here doing what I'm telling you not to do. It's very hypocritical. But when I was talking to Izzy, I got so open about it because I'm sitting here and I'm like, for once, I'm not hypocritical. Yeah. I did go through it. I did heal from it. I did work through it. I can talk about it. I can give the good advice. I can, whatever. So we met that day and I was like, wait, this girl is so familiar. Where do I know her from?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh yeah, I go to your church. I was like, no freaking way. I was like, wait, you're the girl. And we were like, yeah. And I was like, oh. I was like, oh, crazy. I remember what I was wearing the day I met her.
Me too. She was wearing the Letterman, and that's how I knew she went to my church.
That's
how we met. Huh?
Oh, that day, yeah. No, but the day we met at church, I was wearing a black bodysuit with my red fancy pants. I was. And I don't know. I just remember that so vividly for some reason. But yeah, no, yeah. We started hanging out. We had a mutual friend. That's another topic. But we had a mutual friend, and we hung out with her, with us. We were like, and then we started to hang out separately, and then some stuff happened, and then it just ended up being me and her. And we went through some stuff together.
That's a whole other
episode. And so we went through some stuff together, and we just kind of got close from that because we had to go through it together. We were all we had.
Yep, literally.
We were all we had. I mean, we had our parents, we had friends or whatever, but we went through it together. We were in this position together. So we were very much, we have each other. That's all we have. And so, yeah, we just got close from there, and the mutual friend was my best friend, and it didn't work out. And so she kind of filled that spot of my best friend. And I filled hers. And so, yeah, we kind of dropped a whole bunch of people.
We did.
And just
kind of crazy.
Kind of just did our own thing.
But
we have our little girl group. But no, yeah, I've been there through all her stuff. She's been through it there through my recent stuff. All the boys.
This year especially, oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, this year was rough.
And it's not even over yet. And school's just beginning.
And so I'm a senior. I guess we'll get into separate kind of descriptions. I'm a senior. I'm 17.
I'm a junior. I'm 16.
She'll be 17 very soon.
Yep, November 27th.
I just turned 17.
Mark your calendars.
I just turned 17.
Say happy birthday.
I go to the Career Center all day. We go to Chaparral, but I'm at the Career Center all day because screw that school wholeheartedly.
Hey guys, I'm switching to all day. No more Shap.
uh, uh, I'm in the education program, so I want to be a teacher. I know it, I've already applied for the college I want to go to. If I don't make it in that college community, it is.
Community it is. So
Um,
I am planning on doing Cosmo and cosmetology. And I'm taking that class and no, I've not applied to a college, but I do know that I want to go to college in Florida. And whether that or I end up staying here and go to community.
yeah.
Because my mommy is not happy about me wanting to move so far. But that's okay.
Yeah. So now we're gonna just talk about, I guess, school lives, how school's been for us. I was public school my whole life as well. My parents ain't gonna pay that money for private school.
Well, absolutely not.
Heck no. Um, I grew up in public school. I went to daycare. I went to kindergarten in Arkansas, and the rest of my school years have been here in Texas. Um, First grade through fifth, Haynes Elementary, sixth through eighth, Roy J. Smith Middle School. Freshman year, Ellison. Then Chaparral was built my sophomore year. Sophomore year, I was at Chaparral in the morning, and then I went to the Career Center afternoon. Junior and senior year, I will be Career Center all day because I don't like Chaparral, and I know too many people and too many ops.
For those older people, ops mean people we don't like.
People who don't like us. Um,
Yeah.
but so elementary school was good. I had all good teachers my elementary school year. I had mostly all good people in my classes. Like I said, fifth grade year is where I became a bully and I got really aggressive and angry and a bully wholeheartedly. I was the definition of a bully. Of a girl. I mean, I was a mean girl. I was a mean girl. I still am sometimes. It's a work in progress. Middle school, like elementary school, I got all the boys. I had a little boyfriend every week. I had a new one every week. Like, elementary school, little cute little we'll hold hands at recess type situation. He'll swing with me, like stupid things. Middle school, I ain't getting nobody. I went downhill from there. I didn't get nobody in middle school. Like, my middle school was basically just me being a kid. I had a best friend there. She had the same name as me. Don't do that. Don't date. Don't date. Don't be friends with someone with the same name as you. That didn't end very well. And then, high school, freshman year. Whew, that was a year. Um, that was something. That's all I gotta say about that. That'll be a different episode. High school, freshman year, I didn't really care about school. I was kind of just there to be there. All throughout, what the heck? All throughout my freshman year, I didn't really care. What they say, freshman year, easiest school year. Sophomore year, still very easy. Junior year, crap. Junior year, you're gonna want to like jump off a building. Senior year, I don't know. I'm going through that right now. But so yeah, freshman year was a year. I didn't really care. Sophomore year, I went through some stuff with sports and stuff. Oh yeah, I did soccer. Fun fact. Sophomore year, I went through some stuff with sports, but I had my getaway of Career Center, and I met one of my favorite teachers who left me to go be an AP. How dare he? Mr. Hennig, if you're listening to this, how dare you? Um, so then junior year, I was at the Career Center all day, so there wasn't a lot of drama with me, but somehow there was still so much drama with my name at a school I was barely in. Don't ask me. And I met my favorite teacher, Ms. Berg. Oh, I love her. If you're listening to this, Ms. Berg, you're amazing. I love you. And Miss Montgomery. and all the history people, I guess, they're just all amazing. And they all kind of made me make it through my junior year basically. Um Senior year we'll find out.
All right. So I don't remember much in my elementary school years up till like third grade because I was moving and yeah, I didn't have like super either bad or good. Like it wasn't it was just kind of there. I'm sure I could remember if my mommy tells me, but right now I don't remember. Um but yeah, my third grade, I remember the first person I ever met. I still talk to her. Her name is Aziza, and she's the sweetest girl ever, and she's so pretty, and she's just very loving. And there's a few other people in that classroom that I remember very vividly, and some people still talk to me, or we are mutuals. And yeah, but there was some group of people who weren't very nice, and that's when I started getting bullied and I had like no friends and that sounds really sad, but I mean yeah, I was in third grade. I had no friends because they were like, ew, who's this weirdo? They're like a new girl at my school and like Jefferson, if you know anything about it, like the way it's so small, it's like the high school only has 300 kids like in total. Like we had like 5 kids in each class, not really, but it was very small. It was very everybody knew everybody. When there was a new kid, it was like if they're not like top tier, you're
Drop dead
weird.
gorgeous, yeah,
Yeah,
like
if
a
you're not
model.
drop dead gorgeous, you're not popular. Like I was not popular. I was not like I was not a mean girl. I was so like I was so innocent and so sweet that like I would literally let that's where it started. I would literally let people walk all over me because if I didn't, like I would get bullied more if I was mean than if I was nice. You know? Like if
Hmm.
I was mean to somebody that would give them something to be
Yeah.
bullying me about.
Yeah.
And yeah. And so I was bullied all throughout like my time there. And I was there till 8th grade, like literally for years. Like I made some friends, but they were just like they would pressure me to do things. That's a whole thing, but yeah, so I never had a good experience at school. There was always like drama and boys and like I would never I like would never like actually get with anybody because I was like if my parents find out like I'm going to get grounded. I did have one boyfriend and we dated for a week and the one thing I told him not to do he did. Oh, anyways, that's a whole thing. That's a whole other episode. But yeah, so um there was teachers that I did love and that were very sweet to me, but yeah, and then I moved in my freshman year. I became friends with this one girl and we didn't I don't really remember how we stopped being friends, but we did stop being friends and she was like my first friend here and yeah, she showed me around the school. Anyways, and so my freshman year was kind of mid, like it was very easy. Like I would everybody who was like scared to go into middle school, it's like or middle school.
Middle school.
Ah, okay, let me restart that. I would say that my freshman year was not as difficult. I did have some people who are no longer in my life, and that's for a very strong reason, but a very valid reason. And yeah, so and then my sophomore year, last year was very it was fine up until this year. Like up until like February, it was yeah, it was kind of crazy, but and so I would say like the school year wasn't bad. Anybody who's scared to go into their sophomore year, don't be. It's really just people and drama that make it bad. But if you just steer clear, like girl, you'll be okay. Like the school year isn't hard. The school work isn't hard.
Hmm.
And Miss Hammond, if you're watching this, I love you so much. But she left me or um she left to go to another school. I think is fake. But yeah, she really helped me get through a lot during that time. But yeah, so we'll see how junior year is. Everybody makes me scared. to
This
go into my
sucks.
junior year.
I'm telling you right now, junior year was my worst year.
Oh my gosh.
And I wasn't even at the school where my worst year happened. Like, it's so bad.
Right.
But
that's like the very
that's
surface.
the surface. Y'all
That's
will
very
get the
surface
detailed
level
later.
information.
Yeah, y'all will get detailed in later.
Yeah, but this was a
little introduction.
So we're here for you, and we love you guys. And
I love you so much.
Jesus loves you.
He does love you.
And come listen to our next podcast.
Thank you for sitting and listening to us yap. We love you.
Jesus loves you.
Come to our next episode to see what else we can yap about.